this sulfur came down from heaven. It didn't blow up from earth and then fall back down. This was by God's hand. He sent these angels to do the actual work of it, but he said, I've heard the cry of the people who pray to me about this city and how vile it has gotten, how violent it has gotten, and I am going to destroy it. And he overthrew the cities, the entire plain, destroying all those living in the cities and all the vegetation in the land. But Lot's wife looked back, and we all ponder why. Was there something there, a possession she thought she should have gone back for? Did her heart break for people who didn't deserve it? I don't know what it was, but there was no mercy. He turned her into a pillar of salt. Why? For a lack of trust. You understand how important it is that we trust God. That is what Eve did wrong. God does not take lightly doubt. We must trust him. If there's anything else you get out of the Bible, it's learn to place your faith and trust in God no matter what. And there can be a lot of things that will try to shake your faith in this world, and that's why we should encourage each other. But stay to the Lord. He does not take it well when you betray him by not obeying because you did not trust him, when he has done everything for you. And she did that. So there was no compassion. Early the next morning, he got up, returned to the place where he'd stood, and looked down. So God destroyed the cities in the plain. He remembered Abraham, and he brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where Lot had lived. Lot and his 2 daughters left Zoar. They realized there's nobody left for us to have sex with, so they decided to get their dad drunk, have sex with him, so they can get pregnant and have their father's bloodline continue to go forward. So now you have 2 girls pregnant by their dad just so they can keep the bloodline going. Are you starting to see here? It's a different kind of people. That's how important that was to them. And we look at that and say, isn't that sick? They basically raped their dad, got him drunk, and got pregnant by their dad. And I'm thinking, this is sick. And it's like, it's not a great story, but the story's still going to be told. It says in verse 36, both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The oldest daughter had a son named Moab, the father of the Moabites. Remember that. And the youngest daughter also had a son. She named him Ben-Ami. He is the father of Ammonites. Remember that. So now we get into Abraham and Abimelech. And Abraham moves on. For a while, he stayed in Gerar. Again, he said of his wife, she is my sister. And that Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. Okay, keep reading. But God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said, you are as good as dead because the woman you have taken, she is a married woman. Now Abimelech had not gone near her. Remember, the same thing happened with the Pharaoh. And Lord said, and so he said, Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Did he not say to me, she is my sister? And didn't she also say, he is my brother? I have done this with a clear conscience and clean hands. So God said to him in a dream, yes, I know you did this with a clear conscience, so I have kept you from sinning against me. That is why I did not let you touch her. Now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. But do not return her. But if you do not return her, you may be sure that you and all who belong to you will die. So again, he goes to Abraham. He says, what have you done to this? Why have you done this? But, he did take her. So they honored the marriage bed to the point that as long as it was a sister, you could take her and put her in your harem, I guess, because it looks like the exact same story happening again, just different people. So Abraham replied, I said to myself, there is surely no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she really is my sister. So this is the scripture I was telling y'all about in 2012, where he actually says, the daughter of my father, though not of my mother, and she became my wife. I know you're thinking, this is just sick, and are marrying stuff. And it's like, you've got to remember you're still populating the land at this point, and at this point, that was not wrong yet. There is a place that we will be coming to as we continue to read where God said, okay, we're done with all that. From here forward, it isn't okay anymore to do this. So then Abraham prays to God. He heals Abimelech, his wife and female slaves, so they could have children again. For the Lord had kept all the women in the household from conceiving because of Sarah's wife. I've never birthed a child. I read that the first time and said, Lord, so I'm being punished? What am I being punished for that I can't conceive while everybody around me conceives? Y'all, can I tell you something? God's been really clear with me since then. First of all, I have been the spiritual mother to all three of my kids. And I do call them my kids, but I still respect they have a mom. I also do not think God is punishing me for anything. I don't know why I never got to have children, but I don't think God's punishing me. If he is, I'm sure he will let me know as soon as I get into heaven. Then he'll be like, so let's party. You're going to have a great time in heaven. I don't know. I don't think I will care there. Here, I've cared a lot. But I've also been blessed in a lot of ways. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about that, but I see where they would feel this way. So now we're in chapter 21. This is the last chapter for this week. And the Lord was gracious to Sarah, as he has said, and he did what he had promised. And that was she bore Abraham a son, and they named him Isaac. And he was 100 years old. And Sarah said, God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children, and yet I have borne him this son in his old age, and her old age. So Hagar and Ishmael, now they're getting sent away. Remember them from the story a little while ago? So the child grew up and was weaned, and one day Isaac was weaned, and Abraham held a great feast, and Sarah saw that the son whom Hagar, the Egyptian slave of hers, had born was mocking. Okay, and she said to Abraham, get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share in the inheritance of my son Isaac. And that is true. The matter distressed Abraham greatly because it concerned his son, but God said to him, don't be so distressed about the boy and your slave woman. Listen to what Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. I will make the son of the slave into a nation also, because he's your offspring. But it's not going to be the same nation. And to this day, when you see Israel fighting with Palestine over that land, it is Israel's land. There is another land for Palestine, but they're just be there. And they keep wanting to come in. And Israel, I know Netanyahu has said, look, I want to keep peace. I don't want to keep having war over this. So we'll give you some more land. And as soon as they do and they get closer in, they take closer shots into the city of the people living there. Just like the Palestinians claim that Israel is doing to them. And yes, that's back and forth on both sides. But Israel is trying to have peace and keep their land. And it won't be heard of. And it's just going to always be a war. I just feel like it will always be a war. All the way back to here. So it isn't just the Old Testament fulfilling itself in the New Testament. It's fulfilling itself in our modern day time still. You don't think the Bible's true? It's still happening. Still showing forth. So Abraham took some food and water, gave them to Hagar. She went on her way. When the skin of the water was gone, she went off and sat down by a bow shot away from a tree and said, I cannot watch my boy die. So she got up, set him down, and went away. And God heard the boy crying, and the angel of the Lord called to Hagar from heaven and said, what's the matter, Hagar? Don't be afraid. God has heard the boy crying. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, and I will make him into a great nation. Then the Lord opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer while he was living in the desert of Paran. His mother got a wife for him from Egypt. At that time, Abimelech and Phocol, the commander of the forces, said to Abraham, God is with you in everything you do. Now swear to me before God that you will not deal falsely with me or my children or my servants. Show to me in our country where you now reside as foreigner the same kindness as I've shown you. So we're back to this Abimelech story. So do you see that? It just keeps kind of backtracking a little. It does make it hard to follow stories at times when this happens. I'm trying to see how much more of this we need to go into the detail. Okay, there's this treaty at Beersheba. So I guess we do need to talk about it. So, Abraham says, I swear it, he promised. And then he complained to Abimelech about a well of water that his servants had seized. And Abimelech said, I don't know who's done this. You did not tell me. I only heard about it only today. So Abraham bought him sheep and camels and gave it to Abimelech. And the two men made a treaty. And they set apart 7 ewe lambs from the flock. What is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs you have set apart by themselves? And he replied, accept these 7 lambs from my hand as a witness that I dug this well. So that a place called Beersheba, because these 2 men swore an oath there. So that's what Abraham is saying to Abimelech. And then he says, after the treaty had been made at Beersheba, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, returned to the land of the Philistines. Keep this in mind. We're going to have some more stories. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there he called it in the name of the Lord, the eternal God. And Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines for a long time. Now that is the end of chapter 21. We're going to start talking about how Abraham was tested and chapters 22, hold on, through 25, starting tomorrow, and then the reading for tomorrow to be reading on. So go ahead and read that tonight or first thing in the morning, and then by midday, if you can, read 26 through 29, because it's actually Tuesday, day 2, okay? Yeah. So this is the testing of Abraham, and I'm sure you've heard of that too. Now we're starting to see it all come together, and you're starting to get a flow of history here. Some of the stories are difficult. Some of the facts are hard to swallow. Some of them are very difficult to think actually went on. Was God for it? Was God against it? Was it a product of the roughness of the day, the roughness of society at that time? Are we starting to see just how sinful man is and how God has to deal with them on some of these things? And I think that's where we may not be able